Call this meeting to order. Finance Committee.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is amendments to wetland bylaw provision, article review, Mark Garrett. So, Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the FinCom, Town Administrator. As the Environmental Affairs Coordinator, I'm here today to thank you first for hearing this article and to present the revised Dartmouth Wetland Protection Bylaw in summary for your review and support. Over these many months, this bylaw revision has been subject to a public hearing with the Conservation Commission and was approved, and has also been reviewed and approved by Town Council. The bylaw as currently constituted has not been comprehensively reviewed or revised since April of 1990. And bylaws are organic documents that should be revisited from time to time, and if necessary, revised. It is now more than that time after a 34-year interval. In general, these revisions serve to simplify the bylaw and reflect its current and accepted implementation and the newly implemented online filing procedures, while clarifying certain definitions of terms and the procedural distinctions between the State Wetland Protection Act and the local Dartmouth bylaw. In addition, there is a new requirement assigning to the permitting of new dock construction that will require that when said approved dock is damaged or destroyed by a storm, tide, or other means, any cleanup costs incurred by the town will require full reimbursement by the dock owner prior to any new approval to rebuild the damaged structure. Currently, there is no provision for compensation of any type or cleanup reimbursement. What should clearly be understood by the FinCom, the Select Board, and the town meeting, that these revisions in no way expand the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, nor change the intent of the bylaw as currently constituted. The Conservation Commission asks on the behalf of the town to support this revised bylaw. I'm prepared to answer any questions.
Okay, I'll start. So the only change to this bylaw is the cleanup of the docks.
That's the only addition. I mean, we've modified the language, not to change it, but to simplify it. For example, in the current document, we call out freshwater wetlands as a resource area. We never defined it in that bylaw. I think it needs to be defined. We call out coastal wetlands, and we defined those, but we never defined freshwater wetlands, which is the most protected, aside from salt marshes, of resources under our bylaw. So, I mean, it sets that apart in the definitions where it didn't before, so that someone can look it up and see what it is and not leave it to their interpretation and subject it to our review after the fact.
Okay.
Well,
Go ahead, Jerry.
so although the Finance Committee doesn't understand sometimes why we have to comment on these articles, we do. And when we do, we like to know what is the change. So you just said that the definition of freshwater wetland is new. Right?
That's, as a definition, it was
Yeah.
referred to in the text, but
Right.
it was only in narrative. It was not specifically defined.
Because I believe what you said, that it's not an expansion, but we still would like to know what is it that, so there's a definition that's added, the thing about the docks. I'm just wondering why.
And the procedural things. The bylaw as it's currently written right now, it requires 5 hard copies. We haven't taken 5 hard copies of anything in 10 years. We are taking 2 hard copies currently, but we also are now requiring filing and payment of fees online through the portal, which is new, 2 years plus, if that. Okay, so we've brought the bylaw up to be consistent with the new filing policies. I mean, everybody's doing it, nobody's complaining, but if somebody from out of town were to come in and grab the bylaw, they would file incorrectly because the bylaw speaks nothing of the filing requirements today.
Go ahead, John.
Mark, I'm a bit uncomfortable, and I have been in the past, on voting on a bylaw where I can't see where those changes are. We just got a brief summary from you. But and I'm sure others at town meeting, would love to see the document, what the original bylaw was, and then some kind of red line document, what do we cross out, what do we add, all that in red. So it's very clear on, because as you know, one word can change
I
a lot of
apologize.
context in
I
in a
apologize. I
bylaw.
thought that
So we
you,
have no idea, we got this bylaw that's, I don't know, a dozen pages.
so you have the new language.
We have the new language, we don't know what the, well, even if you had the new and old before us, we don't know what those changes. It'd be nice to get the old bylaw, and then what was added, deleted, to that bylaw. So it's clear to us, okay, on page 3, paragraph 4, they added that definition. Oh, that makes sense. Or, we added something else and we deleted this. I can't see that by reading.
I
that
was under the
document.
impression that town council had afforded that.
Yeah. Can we get that,
I will have to look. I mean, there's several iterations from.
but there had to be
day
a
one.
final that the committee
I
voted
can,
on.
I can send you a final red line document of where the changes were.
Yeah,
I can
that'd
do
be great.
that. I can
Because
do that.
I think most of us would want to see that before we vote.
Who do I send that to, Gary, or?
Send that to Gary.
Send it to Gary.
Send it to me and I'll forward it to the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, and we do the same thing with the planning board. It's the same situation. Does anybody else have any questions, or?
No, that's what I wanted to ask, what the changes were, so you could see
Okay.
more fun.
And my last question is, this complies with the state laws in the state of Massachusetts, I'm assuming?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too, thanks.
You too.
Take care.
All right. Obviously, I was gonna read that one. I brought water this time. Okay, so next on the agenda is warrant article review recommendations. So where do we wanna pick this up?
Actually,
Oh, you know something?
Right over me, Bob.
I'm looking at the last agenda. All right. Fiscal year 25, Town Administrator, EMA Building Budget Review. All right, Mr. Sean.
So just one thing before we start, Sean, and the members, you'll see lines on the first page. These lines mean nothing, it's because I converted it over to a PDF. So it somehow, that doesn't mean they're stricken or anything like that, it's just, you'll see it on your hard copy that they're
Okay.
there.
What, I'm sorry, I missed that, the line.
Lines that don't belong there, that's not that
Okay.
they account them.
You have 5 copies anyways.
Yeah.
So I'll go through the budgets. There's not a whole lot of changes from the previous year, aside from compensation changes, either contractual or collective bargaining settlements. So Select Board, you can see, just the changes are really just attributed to salaries and compensation. Next is, sorry.
Sean, can you just say, so line 1 is 1 FTE, 1 full-time equivalency, and then line 2 is how many?
The line number 1 is the town administrator
Yep,
salary, professional other. You can see over the years, it's been combined, so we took a number of positions that were funded from other accounts and they closed them, and that's professional other. Those are just contractual GIS salary.
how many people, Sean?
The professional other is the assistant town administrator, the
Communications?
communications coordinator, the system analyst, those 3 positions.
3,
Yes.
okay.
And they're all FTEs.
Yes.
GIS is a stipend, right?
Yeah, we have a stipend that's split. The system analyst is 5,000, and the planning director, you may recall under their budget is 5,000. That's been.
So who, the GIS salary of 5,000 is going where?
The system analyst.
And that's under your,
It's.
so the planner, that's under the planning board's,
No, there's, we split, previously, there was, when Mike O'Reilly was here, he was receiving a $10,000 stipend for the GIS, for being kind of the GIS liaison with the town. The system analyst and the planning director both had that skill set, so we
no, but where
decided-
does the other $5,000 come from? That comes from the planning board
It's in the
budget.
planning board budget,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, no, that's my question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Clerical is the clerical staff. That's Melanie, and also a part-time. We have a part-time position. That's Stephanie Crane currently. Special projects is our scanning, part-time scanning staff. As you know, we have a project scanning all of the historical property files in town. They're about 3/4 of the way, I think, through the building department files. You know, we try to keep that staff. Sometimes we have 3 staff, sometimes we have 1, but they're part-time. But they've made a big effort. There's a lot of files there, so those are available online to the public now. We have the link on the website. We don't promote it as much as we probably should, just because you know, we're 3/4 of the way through the building files. We don't want people to go there and think, well, why aren't my files here? But they can certainly look at that, and when people request it, we present it.
Okay, good.
And just to kind of finish that thought,
Yeah.
all of all our online permitting system, all those permits and the information gets written to the system automatically. They're just scanning the historical documents
So how far back will those records go?
as far back as we have them. So what they do is they go by property file, so they take 1, 2, 3, you know, Park Street, and there's a folder in the building department. They take the staples out, they organize it, they scan it, they put a piece of paper in and says it's scanned, and now it's in the system.
So the public will have access to those, and so they'll be able to put in an address and see every permit that's been issued for that property, as long as
Correct.
they've been
Yep.
keeping records, yeah. And then, is that, expense expected to disappear? You said you're 3/4 of the way done, is that?
With the building department, and then we have conservation, we have planning, we have historic. You know, ultimately, the goal is to continue to scan it. Now, if, you know, the economy changes and things change, this is something we have to put on hold, but it's important that we kind of get to a point with the building that that's complete.
Yep. But, eventually that will be done, am I correct? So
Yeah,
what's,
and
what's the plan? And whether it's 3 or 5 years out, is the plan to eliminate and just have,
Correct, because the current online system creates those documents automatically and writes them to this.
oh, so there won't be a need for anybody?
Right.
Once it's done?
Right. So ever since we've implemented the online system 3 years ago, all those files are written automatically.
So no projection, is it 3, 5 years out, or 2 years out, or?
Probably 3 to 5, I mean, realistically. You know, like I said, we generally have a couple of part-time staff. You know, we try to get more. Sometimes we have more staff that are willing to put in more hours, sometimes we have less, so.
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Bill.
Union, are these folks, some of these people in the union or non-union, or
The part-time staff doing the scanning, no, that's non-union.
is anybody here like the GI systems analyst, is he union? So there's nobody
Nobody
actually listed
in
here?
this department is union.
Nobody's listed, okay, thank you. And with the guidelines, within the 3% range for salary increases?
Generally, you know, for these positions, we mimic the DTEA contract. So if the DTEA union were to get whatever COLA, we attribute that same to the staff here.
Okay.
Okay.
Unless there's a personal contract, like myself or the assistant town administrator, they have personal contracts, which it's stipulated in the contract what the increases would be.
Gotcha.
And then, under the expenses, you can see they're all the same. ADA compliance, education, which is used for all staff, postage, printing, advertising, office supplies, things like that. And then other is really just fees and subscriptions, Buzzards Bay Coalition, Serped, the Mass Municipal Association. And then we have a temporary employee for temporary employee support that we've had in there, that we took out, actually.
And Sean, if I may, the training involves, what type of training are you?
A variety of training. Last year, we did a 6-week training course for managers on management training. We've done computer training on Word, Excel. We do Munis training, things like that, our financial software, so a variety of things.
Okay.
And also human resources type training. All right. Next is Town Hall Facility and Vehicle Maintenance. This is exactly what it's for. We have a facilities supervisor position that was new last year, you may recall, we created it. It has not been filled yet, but we anticipate it will be filled this year. Tim Lancaster, who oversees that, is working with HR to try and fill the position. They have not had a lot of great applicants, so.
You think you can fill that for that rate?
We believe so, yes.
Part-time, or is that?
That's full-time.
That's full-time?
The other facility is all the custodial staff, which, as you may recall, we merged them last year. They used to be under different budgets, under COA, under library, under the select board budget. Now we've consolidated that, so we've really centralized all of our custodial operations, which has worked out really well to provide service to even more buildings since we added police in the North Library to help to kind of manage those buildings. Then there's overtime, special projects, these are, and the longevity, these are all stay the same. And then the same under the expenses for town hall, it's, you know, mostly utility-based and vehicle maintenance-based.
Question, Paul.
Go ahead, John.
Under salaries, overtime, you're looking for $8,500. Where is that overtime going?
It depends on the project. A lot of times it'll be related to snow removal, if they need to come in for that.
So when I
You can
look-
see it's used very, very
Right,
sparingly.
when I look at the history, there seems to be a lot of fat there. In '23, you use, you know, just about 2,000, and then in '24 was 3,700, and you're asking for 85. And I know you've always asked for 85, though, if we're not using it, should we continue to ask for 85?
I think if we looked at it over time, I mean, it's hard to predict, so, you know, if the funding isn't used, it just goes back to free cash and is turned back, so, and then that's used to fund capital, as you know, so, you know, you never know what's gonna happen. We have more extreme weather now, so when we have extreme weather events. it
No,
takes longer.
understood, but, you know, we've had extreme weather for the last few years, and I'm just, you know, trying to see an opportunity that, hey, it's only a few bucks, but, you know, if we've got all that fat, why are we showing it, you know, on it?
I feel like the one year that we cut that budget will be the one year we get 3 blizzards in a row.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then we won't have the money to pay them to clear the roads, and then we'll all complain that the road's not cleared.
and, I mean, and you know, John, if you go to town meeting and you're asking to increase the budget, there's, you know, a lot more criticalness in its evaluation, whereas if the budget just maintains where it's at, it's, you know, it's, if it,
No,
like I
well,
said, if it doesn't go back,
You know,
it's gone
I
towards
understand
capital.
that, and as it should be, if people are critical, but there's usually not. There's questions, but it's, if it's legit, the town says, yeah, you know, this is peanuts, I'm just
I get
making
what
a
you're saying,
point
yeah,
that, you know, that, if where there's fat, we should try to eliminate, in my opinion, but we can move on.
Yeah, the only thing, I mean, in the projection, you got $65,000. There's no way you're gonna spend $65,000 in the next couple of months, right?
This is for 25, so maybe
Yeah,
we
but
hire
I'm
them.
saying the
in-
2024 projection says 65,000.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we anticipated hiring, you know,
Yeah, no, I got you.
so, we just,
But you don't adjust that? In other words, if you're not,
no.
We can't adjust the '24 budget because it's.
no, but I'm saying projection, 2024 projection.
Yeah, for 25, I mean, we haven't hired it, so it really wouldn't fall under, you know, this would be a DTEA position, but we haven't hired it, so we're kind of just setting that salary.
Yeah,
could be, if we hire them July 1st, then we had to hire them at a higher rate for whatever reason, but they also maybe get a step increase or something.
Yeah.
Then next year, you'd see that we went over the 65 and we'd be asking for,
Yeah, no, I'm just saying the projection is wrong because we haven't hired the person, so. Okay. Anything else on this?
so that's facilities. This is miscellaneous facilities and vehicle maintenance. This is just buildings outside of town hall, electricity, heating, oil, natural gas, repair and maintenance, so these all stay the same. And when you see custodial, that's the cleaning contract that we use.
Now, the electricity, I'm on the town's electrical thing. I mean, the price went up on electricity for this year. Is
Yeah,
that-
the aggregation,
Yeah,
yes, still well below Eversource's rate.
okay.
The town is on a different program. We have an even better rate.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, yes, which is under a municipal agreement. That-
Oh, what other municipalities? Is
Yes.
that- Okay. Any questions on that?
And I have to give credit to our energy manager, Kathy Stanley. I don't know if she's come before. She's excellent. She stays on, not only our energy projects, in managing them and working with our green communities, but also monitoring utility rates and natural gas rates. I mean, she is really good. So she calls us and lets us know this is a good time to kind of lock in on some things and what not to. So she's been a real asset to the town.
A consultant or an employee?
Consultant.
Consultant.
We originally had funded an energy manager position. I don't know if you remember this. This is probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And, we tried to keep an open mind and be objective. When we came across Kathy Stanley, she was a consultant, and she's been able to kind of provide a better service for less than, what we had originally anticipated, and we're not paying benefits or pension, so it's really worked out well for the town.
I've seen her presentations at Select Board, and she does a great job.
She does, yeah, she's really good. Police facility and vehicle maintenance, this is similar to the other items, utilities and maintenance. No change in this from previous years. Communications, this is generally our telephones and cellular phones. We budget this, you can see where our actuals come in, it varies a little bit, so we keep it at the 76,000.
And that's just for town hall?
It's townwide, not enterprise funds, but everything, but, it includes police and library, things like that.
DPW?
DPW that aren't enterprise, yes,
That comes out of the enterprise?
yes. This year I've included the building department under this because our new director of inspectional services just started a few weeks ago, we hadn't had one. We did incorporate their salary into this, though, along with the new building inspector that came on a week and 2 weeks later. And then other than that, it is existing staff with increases related to collective bargaining agreements.
So what's the FTE on the first line, Sean?
One, director of inspectional services, 1.5 building inspectors, 2 full-time clerical, and then part-time building inspectors. I think there's 4 or 5, there's plumbing, gas, and electrical. And they've varied a little bit, so currently, I'm not sure the total, but it's about 4 or 5. And those are part-time, and some are just paid per inspection.
So when was the last time we increased fees for inspections?
I want to say 2 years ago, when Joe Braga was here, we did a whole fee review and raised and altered a number of fees, mostly raised, but
Yeah,
to be more in line with, other communities, so.
yeah, okay, John.
This may have been given to us already, and I apologize, Gary. What was the revenue from fees that the building department collected? Do we have that number?
Oh, I'd have to go back and look. I don't know off the top of my head.
Have we seen that?
That was in the presentation I gave last week. Yeah, I can
The
send,
lo- The local receipts.
Yeah.
Yes.
For just the building department, what do we?
It would be under kind of permits. I think there's a line item for that.
Yeah.
And we can,
Just
we
the
can
building
get that.
department, I'd like to.
I gave it to you last, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, can you?
Yeah, the revenues have been pretty stable.
It's a significant amount of revenue.
Yeah.
Just because of the number of permits that are applied for and the way, and also the way the fees have been restructured, particularly as it relates to, I know roofing, commercial roofing. It's charged by the square foot where it used to be just charged a single rate, so that's been able to increase revenues quite a bit, and it's in line with, all the other communities in the state.
And the snapshot that I gave last week, keep in mind, we're in April, so as the summer starts to ramp up in the spring, they're gonna see much more volume and revenue, so. But it might have been down a little bit, but we kind of recouped that.
We should have a year and a half of history there with the new rates, because they were implemented 2 years ago, so we should be able to see, maybe not the total for this fiscal year, but the previous fiscal year, we should be seeing.
I'll have a town accountant run the last couple of years.
And
Thanks.
just kind of keep in mind, when you compare the revenue from permitting fees from year to year, it really depends on the project. We had one up in the industrial park, I think it's a pharmaceutical or biotech company. They did a $25 million renovation to that building, which the fees were significant. So we don't get that every year. But, we had other projects that add up, so you really have to do a deep dive when you're comparing year to year to make sure, like, okay, that's like an outlier, which is great. But when you go back to the next year and you're like, well, why are you short on your revenue? Like, you're short $1 million. Well, not really. If you go back 3 years, you can kind of see we didn't have that project, we're in line. And we did that last year when we looked at it, because we wanted to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, the numbers can look a little bit skewed because you have a project that even like, when we report to the financial advisors, they look at the cost of the project, and if it's 25 million, they say, well, okay, what happened? We have to note that, we have to footnote that in the financials.
And then under building up department expenses, you can see it's your general expenses, no change. Next, this is a little bit of a change, the EMA budget, it's emergency management. As you may recall, Joe Vieira, who was a police officer, he would receive a stipend as part of being the EMA officer for the town. Joe is retired. We since have an EMA officer, Tim Sheehan, but he is not an employee of the town to give a stipend. So, we felt $2,000 to do the work that the emergency management officer is tasked with was low, so we've increased that to $5,000, so a modest increase. And then we've increased the repair and maintenance for vehicles, just because it's, when we looked at the actual for '24, 3,800, it was well over the 2,000, so we want to make sure that we can cover those expenses. And we've increased some other expenses along those lines as well. I mean, the budget hasn't been increased in a long time. Tim's coming in, he's doing a good job. He's helping get more organized and kind of preparing us more for the future. We had a lot of equipment that was attained over the years that I don't know if the town really needed. In particular, last year, we had a lot of hand sanitizer that was given to the town free during COVID. Well, that's a hazardous material and it expires, so this year we had to pay, I think, almost $4,000 to have it removed.
You're kidding.
Yes,
Hand
so,
sanitizer?
yes.
Hazardous
It's a
material, I
hazardous
rub on my
material.
hands all the time.
There's a reason not to rub it on your hands.
We had to pay to remove that, and this is why Tim is kind of being more organized and taking a look at what things are and how we prepare for the future, so, we're making more of an effort with EMA, and we just talked about the extreme weather. I think we're gonna see more events where, these things will happen. We're gonna rely on the staff here, to provide more support. Streetlights, this is to, fund the repair of streetlights. We do get, a number of these per year that need to be replaced. So that stays the same. Traffic lights as well. I think, I look at this every year and I say, why is this under the town administrator's budget? This should be under DPW. I think one year we'll make that change.
Yeah, I agree, it should be.
I mean, it's just kind a flow-through, if there's a request to, the traffic lights in our office, we send it to DPW, they coordinate it, and we just get the invoice, so, maybe in the future.
So this is a maintenance budget, not an O&M budget? So where does the operational budget come from?
For the lights, the electricity, that's under the town administrator, so that's under our electricity budget that you saw 3 pages earlier.
What is required to move something like this to the DPW budget? Just doing it?
We just move it pretty
Did
much.
not require a vote or a
No.
No, I
5
mean,
meetings or?
no, we did that, I think you remember with the custodial salaries, one was in COA, one was in library, we moved them all in. It's really just noting that, particularly the first year, this budget increase, I mean, this is $8,000, it's nothing, so you would see it as part of the DPW highway budget, I'm guessing, and an increase of $8,000, and you see the decrease here.
So does the DPW actually fix the traffic lights, or do they subcontract?
It's subcontracted. The same with the streetlights. We have a contract with a company that goes out and they repair them. We get the calls in and we call them. And last is sealer of weights and measures. This we contract out. Very fortunate that we found someone that was able to do this. I don't know if you remember, was it last year? This used to be, times have changed quite a bit. It used to be a stipend for the building commissioner that, years ago when I started, that's how it was set up. The Director of Inspectional Services, building commissioner, that's a very complicated job that takes a lot of time. They don't have the time to be going out and measuring gas cans and scales and things like that. So we found a gentleman to do it. He's done a great job, really organized, and this just helps to fund, to pay him for his service. And then there's some other office supplies related to that, but not much. Another, state mandate that we're required to do that. We called them, we have nobody, and they were like, well, tough. And that's it.
All right. All right, thank you very much, Sean.
My pleasure. It's the first year in a while we haven't had something staffing-wise to go back and forth over. It's like,
Yeah.
Give us
Well,
time.
maybe
Yeah.
next year, Sean.
yeah.
So, the next item on the agenda is the warrant, continue the warrant article review. Do we have the-
So,
I think you had mentioned that the special.
Special I have too. That's
Okay,
all set to go.
Do we want to go through that,
Well,
or
do you,
first? or-
I have, so from last week to this week, we had a few questions on some of the articles that we had held. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 articles today that we could review in the
Okay.
annual, and we can go to the special.
Okay, all right.
Well, 4, if you want more information on Article 24. If you're not prepared to vote tonight on Article 24 without the red lines, then we may want to wait till next week.
Yeah, I think we should wait.
Yeah, I'm not ready to vote on
We
that
should wait.
personally.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's good. We gotta see
So we'll have 4.
comparison.
So the first one from last week was Article 7, on, and there was a question, I think that John had about whether or not it was construction or just plans. I reached out to the Assistant Town Administrator, Chris Vitale, and he said that it does not include any kind of construction. There's only, well, I guess it's just not, we're just looking at plans right now, we're not, there's no construction. Yeah, just design.
Oh, yeah, just design.
Yeah.
No construction.
So, my question, because they're asking 24,000 from CPC, and they're getting a grant, from somewhere.
For a grant.
They're applying for a grant. I think the
96
total was close to $100,000.
96, great, yeah.
It's 96.
96.
So my question was, typically, engineering is 10% of a municipal project. So 10% means it's $1 million project. If, we project that out, and that was my question. What are we ultimately looking at if we're doing this design for $100,000? Are we gonna have a project that comes in at $1 million to build some paths to? Now, I know you said you had talked, you might have some more information.
I wondered what the background on this was, and why is this coming up right now? Because I know that a study had been done. There's a pretty active grassroots group working on those tree areas, and DNRT is involved as well, right? So I just wondered, why is this coming up right now, and what are the specifics of?
So the Cornell Pond Committee has been around for a while, and they've been trying to develop the property and clean it up. And I don't know if you've noticed over the years, just from the street, they've really done a good job of having it cleaned up and cleaning up around the water. So they maintain that. What they want to do now is, they've always wanted to do, is create some sort of bridge or walkway over the dam structure that's there, because that connects to DNRT property. Otherwise, you have to walk out to the street, walk around a piece of property to access the site. So they've, you know, they're a very motivated group, and they're really committed. They work hard, they'd like to see that. Now, they've done the other part. There's a little wooden walking bridge that's there that takes it into Cornell Pond. There's a little island area there that you can walk around, but they've been looking to expand that for some time. So it's really looking at that whole thing. Part of that is the dam. You know, it's aged. It's not a hazardous dam. I think we got it declassified probably like 5 years ago, so it's not a hazard to the community, but if they want to have a walkway across it, they've got to figure out if it's stable enough to support that walkway.
It's coming up now for what reason, though?
It's kind of been in the works for a while. So it's just timing. There's no specific timing about why it's coming up, other than, you know, Chris, the assistant, started. He's been able to take this on. You know, I've been working with them, but it's kind of one of those things that's been on the list, but not a priority. But it is a priority for the Cornell Pond Committee. Like, they've been working at this for a number of years now.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the site. I've walked it myself. I'm familiar with the committee. They are excellent group, and my intent is not to stifle that group at all. And they've been working on this for years, and I encourage that. But my question is, what is the end game when we're looking at a $100,000 study? And again, I go back to what the standard is typically 10%, so $1 million. We have, you know, I've been on the CPC for years now, and we've funded many projects with DNRT and others in open space and trail networks. We've never spent that kind of money on, or organizations spend that kind of money on a trail network. So I'm just curious, what is the end game? Because I want to make sure, does the town or the finance committee have the appetite to, you know, look at $1 million trail network, if that's the end game?
Right, and I'm
Why
not sure.
why are we
that-
going to fund?
I think we should probably
Design.
maybe have them come in to
Right.
give an update on the details. And maybe it's not that expensive. Maybe that, you know, this is the.
Yeah, I'm hoping not, because I can't imagine. I've walked that dam, and,
Because I don't think it's $1 million project
you know,
either.
right, you know, to build a wooden structure across that, I can't imagine it's, you know, a huge expense, and, you know,
Well, you know,
building trails.
You say that, and we have this discussion, and it's gotta be ADA accessible.
No,
And the
understood,
current
understood,
dams
but even with
support
all
the
that.
structure, so you start to look at some of those things, and, yeah, I mean, or you, sometimes you think,
And then again, and if it's $1 million,
do you do it? Yeah.
I don't have that appetite to spend $1 million on a 40-foot bridge that's ADA.
I mean, I don't think
you
that,
know.
yeah, the town, would I don't think it'd be prudent, I agree. It's easier to walk out on the street and around, but.
What?
Yeah, Terry?
When Chris comes, if he could send us the last evaluation that was done, because I understand that over the years, it was one status level for the dam, and then that was downgraded, and there was a report done. I think the town spent quite a bit of money on a report. So I'm trying to fill in the blanks. It was done now several years ago, because the process started when David Cressman was here, so. And now, why is it coming up right now? I'd like to understand more about why it's been.
So do you want me to invite someone from the committee? Oh,
I think so, yeah.
Instead
Yeah,
of Chris?
I think we should hear from
Yeah, that way we know.
the
I'd like to
chairperson. I
see
don't
the
know who the
report too. I'd like to see what was recommended the last time.
Yeah, maybe Chris and the chairperson or somebody representing the committee could.
Right, and I think we made a comment that we'd like the language improved on this article. I'm not sure what that would take, so that, you know, it doesn't include construction, it just includes the planning and design, planning and permitting. So is that a possibility? Because we get
Well, I mean, we
to,
have town council, they draft this for a certain reason. So, and if they've used trail development, there's probably a rationale for it. And then sometimes if you get too specific on these things, if the project changes a little bit, you want to be able to use the funding, not to do something totally different, but.
all right, I'm just saying that we're asking the question now because if we don't ask it, it's gonna, with this language, it's gonna come up at town meeting.
You sure?
Well, they're going to include some supporting document, they always do.
Okay.
So-
Buddy came in last
Right,
week and
They come
spoke
in
on
your
it.
packet.
Right, and Buddy couldn't answer these questions, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
The other question is, they're applying for a grant, but they don't have it. And I understand the request for money, sometimes you have to put out money to get money, so that increases the chances, but what happens if they don't get it? Then so those would be questions that I have for
So
Chris.
I'll reach out to the committee and see if they can make the next meeting. That'd be great.
Okay. So to be clear, there's no appetite to change the language here, right? This has already been gone by town council, and we're not gonna be able to change the
Well,
language.
how about we have Chris in to explain the detail of it, and then maybe then
Okay.
decide if it's something that is, worth
Okay.
recommending changing.
You know, and you also, as Janine pointed out, you could attach a narrative to it.
They will, I mean, he always has a
Yeah,
giant package.
so
that's included.
that would alleviate the problem with the article, the way it's written.
And plus, he presents it.
Okay, so what's up next? Anybody else on that, or
No,
You guys did a good job of that. Yeah.
have them come in.
what else?
The next one was Article 10, the CIPC article. CIPC, over the last few months, has met with departments, some multiple times, and has gone over what their requests have been and the priority that they see fit for their particular departments. I'll start off with this chart right here. This is pretty much what we have to spend. So when we have our certified free cash, and we certify the retained earnings for, with the Department of Revenue in November, usually takes place in November, you'll see the top line is what the balance is. You've seen the schedule before, but this has been updated. So this is what we started off with balances in the reserve funds to the right, the general fund here to the left. At town meeting, in the fall town meeting, we spent $800,000. We put $800,000 in the stabilization fund, the normal stabilization fund, and we had $160,000 earmarked for employment contracts for FY '23, prior fiscal year. We spent $1.5 million in capital at the fall town meeting, which in the aggregate was $2.5 million for those two, which left the balance in the general fund for free cash at $2.8 million, so on and so forth, water and sewer, solid waste, waterways, DCTV. So this year, we, as you had just at the last meeting, voted to approve, voted to recommend the $1 million long-term capital stabilization fund along with its funding. So that comes off the balance of free cash. Also, the school stadium project, there was a balance of $359,804. And then the Violetta Wells, there was another balance of $57,736.97. So the 359 is another deduction off of free cash, and then the water is off their enterprise funds. So the remaining balance, we went into CIPC with, was $1.4 million for general fund, $549 for the enterprise, $559 for sewer, $1,052,052 for solid waste, $118 for waterways, and $720 for DCTV. So then after CIPC met and went through the requests, we then approved, and I can go through the detail, this is what we approved this is what they approved rather from the, for the spring. 1.4 in general fund, 250 for water enterprise, sewer, 300, 286 for solid waste, and 34,000 for waterways. Nothing from DCTV. So this is the breakout. And I won't go through every single one of them, but I can go through in the aggregate, so the committee knows how you can continue to follow the process. So what we do is we ask each and every one of the departments to prioritize their level of projects on the short term. And we had, just on the level 1 priorities, I broke it down so it's a little bit easier to read. So out of the entire ask for fiscal '25, we had $24.4 million in short-term capital requests. That includes equipment, that includes building maintenance, so on and so forth. Out of that, 13.9, almost 14 million was a level 1 request. 2.4 was level 2, and then $1 million in level 3. And then the remaining was 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. So if we go up the list, you'll see what was approved. Actually, we can go to the article. It's easy to see them going through that.
Yeah, that's easier to see, yeah.
So the schools, you'll know that last year, there was an ask from the fire districts to start looking at the suppression systems in the schools and updating those. So the committee felt that $50,000 was a good initial commitment to start that process. It's a lot more than that. It's probably close to $1 million from the amounts that I've heard to continue this project to the end. So this is at least a commitment to that. Flooring replacement in some of the schools, removing asbestos flooring. $100,000 technology. This vehicle program, this is when they have to transport special needs, and 2 vehicle replacements. Now, the reason why they want like the flooring in the spring is so that they can do the work in the summer, so that when school starts, they're ready to go on day 1. So it was $615,000 for the schools. DPW administration, Smith Neck Road design, $150,000, and their rate and efficiency study for $35,000. The DPW Highway Division, road and maintenance improvements, they typically ask for $1 million. This is to compensate the Chapter 90 money that they get to go along with road repairs. So the committee voted for $200,000 on that. A truck with a plow and sander, $245,000.
Did they ask for $1 million again?
They ask for $1 million every year, yes.
And the committee only gave them 2.
Well, yeah, and the reason is because there's really limited amount of free cash to divvy up for each and every one of the departments, so.
And they're funded again in the fall. We fund, as you recall, the capital gets funded in the fall too, so they'll receive, I think generally they receive the majority in the fall.
$1 million.
Yeah, most of them is in the fall. Brush chipper, $63,000, and then 4x4 dump truck with a plow, $125,000. So their total was $633,250. Now, these are the enterprise funds. So these are coming off their retained earnings. The treatment plant, clear well and backwash supply storage tank, $200,000, and their PFAS evaluation at $50,000. And then sewer enterprise, the SCADA, and the upgrade evaluation, $200,000, so their total is $300,000. And then solid waste was $286,000 for the cabin chassis, the roll-off. Waterways management, through the harbor master, the Dias Landi dinghy marina, $20,000, and replacement racks, $14,850. $34,850. So if you go to the top, you can see the breakout, 1.4 surplus revenue, as you saw on the other chart, but this is the actual article, so you see what each project is. So the committee knows that there's limited funds, and there was, and the discussion was potentially in the future, along with the long term, there may have to be some borrowing. I mean, obviously, the longer term, there's bigger projects that just can't keep being supported off of free cash.
They can't keep putting off some of the projects. Obviously, if you think about the roads, I learned that to do what they would like to do every year and keep things up would be $10 million. And, we can't.
Yeah, I mean, to do every single one of their requests, you saw the ask is 25 million for each department, each in the total.
Okay, Bill?
That brings up an interesting question. What's the duration on these projects? You have it for this year, but I would presume, looking at them, it's gonna take longer than a year to do some of these projects, right?
Yeah, on some of the projects, like I mentioned with the schools, they want to start now, so they get the funding now, they start in the summer, they're done with the project come fall. So they have the ability to do it while the schools are closed. Some of these projects are studies that take months and may overlap the fiscal year. So it depends on what the project is, but what we try to do is, since I've been in this role, work with the town accountant to identify projects that are out there and what the timeline is, so that these projects don't sit out there too long. And for instance, like vehicles, what are they doing with the old vehicles? If they're putting, and CIPC had this conversation, if they're putting vehicles on the road as a replacement, what happens to that vehicle? Are we still insuring it? Are we still, registration is nothing for the town because it's blue plates, but
where is that vehicle physically? And what is the cost of the town? So we monitor that now. We actually work with the insurance carrier to make sure, and we can identify where those vehicles are in town. And if they are insured, and they shouldn't be, then we ask the department to work closely with DPW to initiate some of this.
The only thing that surprises me on the presentation is the fire suppression system for the schools. Earlier this year, we were asked about a possible reserve fund transfer to work on that. So I thought it would be more, I thought it'd be more money.
I thought that was the library though, Bob.
This is
Was
for
it
the,
No.
last year, they
the
had a
fire-
request to do the whole project. This request is just to do the design.
The design for all the schools?
I don't think all the schools need it, so
I think it may be just the middle.
I'm not sure.
Just the middle?
I don't think the high school,
I guess what I'm saying is, when we were talking about a reserve, if I was wrong, but if I remember, we started talking about a reserve fund transfer because this was such a big thing, and one of our complaints was, why hasn't this been on the capital all these years if it's been going on so long?
It was, but it was priority 5.
Yeah, and we felt, we couldn't do it from the reserve, obviously, but the amount of money, $50,000, I thought you'd be asking for more. And if you're saying it's just the middle school, I thought.
well, I think it's the elementary schools.
Yeah, it's one of the, it's one, not all the
older
schools.
Is this the one where a fire chief wrote a letter?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought it had a higher priority than level 5.
Well, I mean, the school prioritizes. Last year, it was not a high priority. And then they received a letter from the chief after the fact, and asked for 250, which was all the work that they anticipated. This year, it was not
This year, they still submitted it as a level 5
a
priority.
level 5 priority, and they're looking just for the funds to do the design and not the actual work.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I thought when Mr. Kiley was in front of us, there were more school roofs that I thought needed repair. And yet, we're only looking at
Well,
here.
that's just the high school roof.
Yeah,
Just-
120.
I thought it was more than that. I thought he was insinuating that there was more than just the high school.
The other roofs have been done.
I thought it was something like.
Yeah, I think this is just for the elementary.
No, I don't.
The other
think-
roof,
was
you
there?
might have heard that other roofs were done, Bill. There were other roofs that had been done
Yeah.
in the past couple of years.
Yeah,
All the
yeah.
roofs go.
Okay, John?
There were others?
Yeah, back to the fire system. I know last year we all saw that letter from the fire chief, and it was a bit concerning, I think others, that there was some history there that was never addressed, and that was kind of concerning for us. Do we know where the chief is now? Is he okay with the spending and what they're doing per year? Because that's the real issue is, the school department can make all the priorities they want, but if we got a fire chief that was, maybe ignored is the wrong term, but, there was some history there with things, well, no, ignored is the right word, I think, the letter was ignored. He sent another one, maybe a little bit more firmer, and we all saw that. So I'm just wondering where he's at.
So I think after the initial
Is he
letter.
okay with this?
I
Because
think
I want
after,
to make sure.
yeah, I think after the initial letter that came out, that we shared, we knew that, well, we had told the chief, in one of the districts that we were gonna try to make a commitment this in the spring. And so, I think he was happy to see that there was some movement on this. I did see him in the hallway, Chief Aruda, about maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I told him that was the plan, CIPC was meeting. And he seemed like he was, I think we're on the right track, if you will. I think that,
So is it in his district, Chief Aruda is 3, is that, so it's part of school, where the issue is?
yeah. So I think the initial commitment of the 50,000 is the beginning. And again, it relies on, it all depends on how much free cash we have, if that's the plan to just fund these projects in the short term,
Do you want to say anything about that? I just think I thought it was going to be a lot more money.
I think, when I hear words like, the letter was ignored, I wouldn't say it was ignored. I think that the situation that all of these departments are in, and I've only learned this since being on the capital committee, there are competing priorities. There are many things that need to be done, and so they'll number them 1 through 5, but I think when the state comes in and says, you gotta do something, or one of the, the fire department comes in and says, you've got, that kind of moves it right up. Even though there might be other things that were on the list that if it were up just to the school department, they would say this is more important. I saw pictures of restrooms that are so old and rusty that they really need to be replaced at some point. They're not the priority. So I think it's very difficult for not just the school department. I heard this from DPW, I heard this from other departments. It's very tough when they have competing priorities to decide what to put out there. And last year, the school department and the DPW were left off the capital requests. That you might remember some of that. So I think this year, they've been very much involved in the process.
I just had the impression from the letter, and maybe it's just my memory, that it was a safety issue. I guess that is my
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it somehow didn't have a higher priority.
Right, and when I looked at it, the first letter, and I don't know how long ago it was, raised the safety issue, and I agree, everybody's got their priorities. But when I saw the second letter, when it was a little bit more demanding and a little bit more concerning from the chief's aspect, I questioned, how did we get here? And again, priorities, but to me, the safety of the occupants of those buildings is the most important thing that I think a committee has oversight of. And not to be critical, I am critical that, we're asking money to do the ball field next door, but yet we're not concerned about, that was on the capital plan for improvements to put a turf field next door. And I'm not opposed to that. But again, where's the priorities? If you're saying that everybody's got those tough decisions to make priorities, I would think the turf field would be number 3 and school safety would be number 1. And when it comes to priorities, and it appears, and again, it just appears, it didn't work that way.
These are issues of doors that automatically close during a fire. And I think the process, if you go back in time, that letter came from the fire department. The request was made. Gary called and spoke to the chief, and he said, no, it's okay, it can wait. So I think people have there's different processes that are going on here. I think the school department does know what's important, and I think the fire chief wanted to see the project move forward. Start putting the plans in place for these things that weren't part of the original buildings, that the buildings need to be adapted, and I think this will get them there. And you checked with the fire chief, and
If
he
the
said,
fire
yeah,
chief's happy, I'm
Yeah.
fine with it. He's the one who's ultimately
exactly.
got
Yeah,
the
I think that, like I said,
responsibility.
they were looking for at least the beginning of the process, and this may not be a lot of money, but at least it gets
Yeah.
some of it rolling, finally.
Yeah, and the stadium thing is an outstanding bill, right? That's not a new thing.
So those are commitments that we have to pay, because what happens is if we don't pay them, it's a hit to free cash, and then it's a red flag for our audit. They're gonna say, okay, 2 years in a row, you've had this deficit, we need to address it. So the only available funds right now is free cash to address those 2 issues. Well, retained earnings for the water side, but free cash for the stadium.
So, where do we stand on the funds for the government, what was the money that the government had given us?
ARPA money?
Do we have any outstanding amounts of money that we can spend, or?
Yes, so the select board's committed the funding. DPW is, tasked with, a number of projects related to water and wastewater that, the issue is, and the director's been before the board to explain, if he thinks he's gonna be able to, apply for the funds and get the reimbursement from the county. That's the hard part. So the county is giving us a deadline. Technically, ARPA says you have until the end of this year to apply for the funding. Although we have to go through the county to get reimbursed. So the county is saying, well, we need time to process the applications, because it does take a long time. We're seeing, Gary can tell you, it's taking a long time for the county to review these applications for reimbursement, because they need to meet federal standards for procurement, not state, and there's some differences. And the diversity of the projects, so the auditors doing the The auditing of the applications are taking longer, so the county wants all of the applications submitted by the end of June. So, which means that, you know, that's 2 months away, so that needs to happen. So DPW has $3.5 million that the select board's allocated for ARPA funding for a wastewater initiative, but the design needs to be done. So they're working with their designer to get the design done so that they can estimate the cost to guess for the reimbursement. So the DPW director has assured the select board that they'll be able to get this all done by the end of June. So after that, there's some other projects as well that, you know, not as much, but they add up, that they're applying for it. And they have gotten reimbursed for some. So there's still a lot of projects in the queue that need to be reimbursed from the county.
So this wouldn't qualify for, would this qualify for ARPA funds?
The school,
The school?
no, I mean, the project's been done. So,
I'm talking about the $50,000. I mean, the design, you're saying the $50,000 for the design of the fire suppression system?
no, that's not one of the ARPA. ARPA has 4 criteria, you know, water and wastewater infrastructure, broadband infrastructure, revenue replacement, and premium pay.
Premium what?
Premium pay for employees who worked during COVID. We haven't done that, but that's one of the criteria for ARPA. So you'll see some other communities maybe giving bonuses to police officers or firefighters for working through COVID.
So,
That's premium pay.
so we spent $1.5 million on a design for the rec center?
Oh, that's revenue replacement.
That's revenue
That's
replacement?
different. So when the towns are reimbursed for revenue replacement, which is calculated by the federal government, that funding, yes, that was used for that. So, is there $50,000 available to do the fire suppression design?
Well, I want to spend more than $50,000. I want
Well, the
to,
$50,000 is for the design, yes.
Right.
So if there's, the revenue replacement funding, there's not a time limit on it. The town's received it. So, there is some funding that we've set aside for contingency funding as ARPA. So as, you know, like the field next door, projects have come in over or under, mostly over. So if we are estimating that a project costs $50,000, it's coming in at say 75, then the select board took some of the revenue replacement funding from ARPA to put that aside as a contingency fund to kind of fill the gap when we have these overages.
oh, overages, okay. All right.
I mean, if the $50,000 gets the design in place, potentially in the fall, they might have some better numbers that they could come to the CIPC with. And then whatever that dollar amount is, then CIPC could determine, let's put X amount of dollars into now, the construction of it or whatever the case may be.
So do we want to vote on the capital plan?
It's ready to,
Yeah, go ahead.
It's ready, yeah.
Did you didn't send out an update of this warrant to us?
Yeah, I don't see
no,
it.
no,
I don't see it.
no.
I only
Because
say
because
that
we're
'cause
still,
I like to write the rationales.
Thank you
Yeah.
for
On a
mentioning, because
more-
I thought I
on a
was
more
really lost.
yeah, we're still, this right here, what you see, what the article
It's
that I
only
put,
this article that's been updated on the,
it's the ones I'm going through. So 10, and then there's a couple more.
okay.
So
Can you send
I can
me
send them
that,
to you, yeah,
please?
yeah,
By
Only
next
'cause I have to
Thursday,
get
we
this.
should have the whole draft with all the wording.
yeah.
So
So
what you
Article-
went through today is it?
For the ones that I'm giving you,
For Article
they
10?
they are good,
The
yes.
article- There's not going to be
That's
any
it.
changes?
Nope.
So we can vote on it
Yep.
tonight if we wish to.
This warrant doesn't even have the charter articles in here, which
Right,
is
it
a little
does
bit
not.
scary. It's gonna be like biblical, you know?
Say, I'm
Are
sorry,
those
can
ready,
you say that
Terry?
again?
This charter that this warrant that we received doesn't even have it has space for the
Right.
articles
Yeah.
from the charter, but it doesn't have the actual, and
There's no words
it's a lot.
Yeah, the committee had requested that any articles that we could get out of the way, we did, so that's what we're doing. We knocked
Yeah,
a whole
because
bunch of them
the
out.
package
Yeah.
you sent me, there's a lot of stuff here that's not.
Yeah, no, this is the,
Last year or
Different.
Yeah.
something, right, that you put in here as a placeholder.
what you see here is the most current.
Any idea?
And I did resend you the, I thought I resent Janine the most current version, but I didn't.
Any idea when we're gonna see the charter review
I mean,
proposal?
we just received those, so,
We-
yesterday.
They're
or
done?
today.
So is
Well,
there,
I think the committee's drafted them, now town council has to review them.
Yeah, okay.
So, which has not been done yet, and once that's done, we'll have them. So, like I said, I think by next Thursday, we should have like a completed draft. That's
I can tell
95%
you
done.
broadly what they are. They're recommended, there's one, which is gonna be the most paper, which has gone through the charter and done all the corrections for capitalization and grammar from the original.
Okay.
They're calling it an omnibus.
Yeah, I just want to stay on the subject of this.
Okay,
motion
So-
to approve the capital,
Okay, and it's what's up on the
CPC.
screen.
That's
right?
right,
This is
yeah.
what's up on the
What's up
screen.
on the
We
screen.
don't have a hard copy.
No,
but this
you
is
won't have the
what's
hard copy
On
too.
the screen. So John made a motion to approve the capital plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, Janine second. Discussion. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, okay. So
8-0.
it's 8-0. All right,
Okay, so, the next one, Article 12, the committee, well, you had asked me to give you more details on, I guess, the process and how the 102,685 was determined for FY '25. So as I mentioned, it mimics the Steelworkers Union, grade 11, step 6. And so that's where that position falls within that scale.
so it's 4%?
Mhm.
4%.
And the other employees within that department, I know it's a different union, but what was their percentage?
3%. Well, no. The COLA was 3%, the step increase is between 2.5% and 3%, so they would get 5.5, between 5% and 6%.
Okay.
what's the, I'm trying to understand the rationale in following or mimics the steel workers. Because you got the steel workers, who's the supervisory, they represent the supervisory in the town, at least in town hall. This position is not in the steel workers, but we're mimicking that. But yet, the position pays none of the dues. So you got everybody else paying dues for representation and to negotiate their 4% raise, but then we got an individual that's not represented by any way, not paying any dues, and is getting the same benefit. I'm just curious, why the need to mimic?
I can explain that. So, as you recall, 3 or 4 years ago, we did a reclassification and compensation study for the entire town, all the positions. And that's great, because now it's classified every position in town and grades them. So if you were at the highway department doing one job, and you're here in town hall doing an administrative job, it looks at their roles and responsibilities, the level of difficulty, and it grades them, and they could be on the same grade, like 4. But across the town, when you look at it, like that's how we compensate based on that. So it's really a nice structure to go by. So we implement it across the board. So we have other non-union positions that are management level positions that have personnel contracts, and they're still based on that reclassification and compensation study, which is the same as the steelworkers. Now, with the steelworkers, we have to bargain that, but, we try to stay consistent with this reclassification and compensation grading scale. So that's why we have other staff that, they're not on it.
The disparity is what concerns me, that other unions are getting 2.5%, 3%, and we're giving 4% someplace else, and then we're getting 4% who's not even represented.
Right, but they also don't have the protections of the union if things were to
Understood,
happen.
and some of that's by choice, and maybe not by choice, but, and, you're barking up the wrong tree. I spent my whole career in unrepresented, and, I was an at-will employee for 40 years, and.
In this position in particular, like, their evaluation is
But
done by
anyway,
the voters, so, it could be
Just
changed.
asking the questions, and
But our goal is to be consistent with the compensation. And it's helped out. This way you don't have these fluctuations, and we don't have these, positions that are similar but compensated completely differently. It's really helped to kind of stabilize things, and particularly in this market where it's a labor market, we have to be competitive. With other communities, the number of positions good quality positions, like the clerk does an amazing job, and I think the town's very lucky to have her, and she does an amazing job at the operation. There's 4 elections this year, she's running those great, so, it's
And I don't
important to show.
disagree with that, but when we're looking at salaries, you know, we need to put the individual aside and look at, you know, what's the market, all those things come into play. Not that the individual's a great person, and, you know, all those other things that, you know, the emotional attachment, I think we need to
No,
put
I agree.
aside when we're setting
A great
grades and
example is
raises.
the Director of Inspectional Services. So we were having a really hard, that's a union position. We were having a very hard time filling that position because it wasn't competitive and the pool is dwindling. So we had to do a signing bonus. Well, that wasn't part of the union contract, so we had to negotiate that on the fly to get that done. But this is a competitive market. Now, we could have just said, well, the contract's the contract and there's nothing we can do and we'll just leave it vacant because we've negotiated the contract. So you kind of have to be a little bit flexible when we look at these things, and that's why when we look at the broad picture about the salary grade and how they're graded and how they compare with other communities, that's all important. But then also, it's, like I said, it's a labor market, the pool is dwindling, you don't have a lot of these, towns are stealing from one another, it's not, and you know, you've seen this with past years, we're trying to develop staff internally, which has been helpful, but this is the way of the world right now.
Yep.
Just ask a question.
Go ahead.
So you negotiate a signing bonus for that position. Is that now going to carry across every position now within that union, or was it specific to that?
Specific to that position at this time.
But it
So it
sounds
may-
like the door opened.
I mean, this is the reality of where we're
Just
at.
asking.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
so, you know, we have an MO specifically for that position for this time, and it's not, doesn't perpetuate that, but yes, this is, what are you gonna do?
Okay, so, go ahead, do you have a question?
No.
Okay, so are we ready to vote on Article 12?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Need a motion?
okay, Bill made a motion. This is article salaries and stipends of elected officials. Bill made a motion. Somebody want to second it? Second by Janine. Discussion? All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None.
8-0.
800, okay. All right, Gary, what's
Okay, and
up?
the last one was Article 14. This is an article that you see every year for the sewer and septic betterment.
Yep.
System betterment, so we update the numbers here according to what we have remaining on the debt schedule. And then, as you know, these are placed on individuals' tax bills and
Yep.
recouped that way. So, let me put it up on the screen so everybody can see it.
So what's the final amount?
So, right now, the number is 1,151,073.03. And then to see if the town will appropriate the sum of $32,618 from the septic system betterment revenue to cover FY '25 debt service.
So 32,618
$618.
straight, okay.
And these are administered by the Board of Health. Again, this is an article that's in every single year. We just update the number with the debt.
Motion to approve.
Okay, just for the benefit of Gary and Phil, do you have any questions? This is on every year. Do you want a better explanation of this, or do you?
No.
Do you understand? Okay, okay,
Okay.
all right. All right, so Janine made a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Bill second. Any discussion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Any opposed? None? Okay.
8-0.
8-0, yep.
So, just to recap on Article 7, that the committee didn't vote on, we'll have Chris come in along with one of the members from the committee.
Yeah.
And then Article 24, we'll get the red line version from Mark.
He has to show us a comparison.
Okay, is there anything else we can do?
Special town meeting.
Okay,
I can put up on the
so-
screen.
Okay, in your packet, you have
There's
a
the
special
final-
spring town meeting warrant. And there are 3 articles.
This is the final?
The final.
Okay, so Article 1 of the special town meeting. Special town meeting. Community Preservation Committee fiscal year 2024, Community Housing and Historic Preservation Reserve, to see if the town will vote to transfer for later appropriation monies from 2024 Community Preservation Act unrestricted fund in the amount of $60,000 as referenced in the revised community fiscal year 2024 budget to be allocated as follows: $60,000 for open space reserve. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to move this?
I'll make a motion.
Bill made a motion to move. Anybody want a second?
Second.
Second by John Souza. Discussion. No discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? 800.
Oh, no.
So the next two articles you'll see are the amounts that we were requesting off the free cash, so they have to be voted at the special.
Okay. All right, so Article 2 of the special town meeting, warrant appropriation for a previously approved capital project. To see the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $57,736.97 from the Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings for the purpose of covering the costs incurred as part of the June 2019 special town meeting warrant. Violetta Wells. The town wishes to avoid the time and expense of borrowing and asking that the liability be paid from available revenues. So is this a cost overrun? Is that what this is? or-
Well, that's, I'll go back to the previous slide here. This was what's coming out of retained earnings in this instance, and then
Yeah,
free cash.
Sure.
So this is something that was above and beyond what was expected.
well, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like a
over,
cost overrun.
yes.
And this was to drill more or
But
fix
with
the
the
wells.
Violetta well, this was an issue with the, they had to shut down.
Yeah,
Two of the wells
bacteria
under-
or something.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, somebody want to move the motion here? Make a motion to move. Okay, Carrie made the motion to approve. Phil second. Discussion? No discussion? Are we ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I see none.
8-0.
8-0. Article 3 of the special town meeting, appropriation from previously approved capital project. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $359,804.84 from surplus revenue for the purpose of covering the costs incurred as part of the October 2019 FATM for the Veterans Memorial Stadium construction project. The town wishes to avoid the time and expense of borrowing and is asking for the liability to be paid for available funds. So somebody want to make a motion to move this?
So moved.
Janine made a motion to move. Carrie second. Discussion.
Yeah, I got a,
Little background?
What's that?
Can we have a little background
yeah.
on it?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's my question.
This was the project next door, and I think specifically the outbuilding that was put in.
Which building?
The building in the back corner that was put in, that steel building. Town meeting had voted to fund the project over there. And they came in over the project and just overspent. They didn't come back to ask for the funding once they do. So now they've overspent and they need the funding.
They overspent a lot.
Yes, they did.
What
Just
was
a
it,
little.
what was the total cost of the project?
Well, I mean, we should probably have Jim Kiley in here to explain that. I know, because I'm not quite sure if the building in the corner was part of the original funded project. I could be wrong, but I remember it seems to be like 5 years ago when it was, 4 and 5 years ago, it was funded twice at town meeting. Once for the
Yeah.
field and lights and
Right,
next for the
yeah.
stadium. And I'm not sure if the building was included in that, if it pivoted, and I could be wrong, but But then subsequent to that, with the building, the funding that was allocated for the whole project, they've gone over by 359,000.
Do we leave, was that an unforeseen expense, or was that?
That is a good
they
question.
I
went
think
in
it was just,
knowing that-
it was, you know, we talked about these construction overages. It was built during COVID. I think it came in over, you know, prices were going up quite a bit in short periods of time.
So that's, if it came in over, you know, let's say the original budget was $1 million, and the bid came in at 1.4, shouldn't that have come back prior to
Yes.
building, so why didn't it?
That is
And
a
that's
great
why,
question.
yeah, it's a question for the school.
Do you want me, do you want to table this and ask, me to ask?
Yeah, I just would like, and you're probably gonna say the same thing, you guys too, is, when I've been involved in projects, I always have a line item, you know, and if there was any additional scope, I have that line item included and the impact of it, so would they be able to furnish a document with the original scope and with the additional scope? So we could see the, if you will, the changes and how the overage occurred? Would that be possible, Sean?
They should be. I mean, I can tell you that.
That's
Like,
just standard,
that-
project
that's
management.
I agree. The project's on the school side. We had nothing to do with any of that, but your questions are valid, and we can certainly ask the school to come in and answer them, sure.
Yeah.
I
For
think,
that, yeah, sorry.
yeah, I mean, I think that that's totally reasonable to hold off on it, but I think in the end, it's a bill that we have to pay, like, it's not much we're gonna have to do
Oh, yeah,
about
so
it, so.
that's why we, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's why we have it on there. With the project's
But
done.
it would
It's
be
a nice
nice.
project.
That's why it's on a special table. Okay, good.
I think what I'm hearing is that we're really trying to find out
Yeah.
if there's a policy involved on how you review these things.
Right.
And was this particular project reviewed according to that policy?
Right.
Well, that's like a major scope change, in my opinion. I can understand
Absolutely
material
is.
costs may have gone up, but
Absolutely.
that seems like the project changed.
Yes, and that's what has the line
I
item.
agree, it's a bill that has to be paid, there's no
Yeah.
question about that, but are there some lessons learned here? Or,
Absolutely.
you know, if, you know, the question was asked, was this a cost overrun? No, it was a bid project, and the bid came in higher than, you know, that should have come back to us, or to somebody and say, hey, we got $1 million budget, we need 1.4 now, and approve, not spend it, and hey, now you got a bill
Now
you
you gotta
gotta
ask
pay.
later, yeah.
That's,
Right.
that's no way to
Consider
operate,
The
and we
project
need
could,
to.
the project could have come in, oh, sorry, could have come in
Yeah.
on budget, but there could have been change orders that required this 300. I'm not sure.
And again, change orders that came from where? You know,
Yeah.
No,
you know, I spent my career in overseeing large budgets and constructions and change orders and all
Well, there
that.
should've been
and,
another
You know, it
approval.
depends, was the change order unforeseen, or was the change order caused by the customer and said, oh, you know, I want to put in this system, and it wasn't part of the original
Right,
quote.
that's fair.
It wasn't part of the original scope. That's a bit concerning,
course
if
it
that's the case. And I don't know if it is,
No.
but if we could have them in and ask
Yeah.
these questions. just-
All right, so I'm gonna ask them to come in.
We're gonna ask Jim
Explain- yeah,
Kelly
I'm
to
gonna
come in?
ask Jim to come
Somebody
in.
come in and explain, yeah.
Yeah.
And bring in the detail when he comes in, you know, so we can all look at the scope changes
Yeah.
and the additional criteria that was added to the project.
Yeah.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion to table this?
I'll make a motion to, yeah, I'll
Second.
second it.
All right, so Janine made a motion,
I'll
Carrie
second.
seconded it. All in favor of tabling this item till we get further information? Aye. Okay, all in favor, 800?
I don't need to do 0-0 for table.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean,
All right,
it'll be
for
in the
Elizabeth, for Elizabeth. Elizabeth.
Excuse me.
All right,
Okay, so, the next item, you've seen the draft, Schedule A. There's really hasn't been much change, but I don't recommend that we vote on that tonight. I think that
No,
should be
no,
done next week. We'll have it finalized, so the committee can look at it and review it. So the April calendar, I think that because we're winding down here, we should start talking about, well, next week you'll have the planning board. I've already got the articles and the red lines from her, from the department head, Christine O'Grady, and I'll forward that to the committee, so they have that for next week. And then we should also start talking about a presentation of the memo for town meeting. because we really have 3 meetings left, if we don't want to meet on a Tuesday, to pretty much wrap this up.
Right now, the only meeting I have is the 25th, so do we want to set some new dates on when we're?
Well, we're meeting every Thursday, so.
We are going to meet every Thursday, so we're meeting the 2nd, the 9th.
Till the end of time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Trying to be like the charter committee.
I think
By the
Sarah,
time you're done, be ready for
I think
another.
I think the deadline is the 7th.
Years,
No,
seems
the
like
7th, really?
50.
Thursday? For all the articles?
The select board needs to sign the warrant on the 13th. That's the last day they can sign.
Oh, because she told me, I thought she needed everything by the 7th of May.
We know what's exactly,
I double check with her.
it's really what.
I have it on my list, like, 13th is
So
the
is
last
there-
day. select
Yes,
board
I don't
sign.
know. Yeah, so we still have. Okay, so we'll schedule the next three
Okay,
Thursdays.
is there
and we can wrap that
anything else we want to vote on and it's in the package? I mean,
So, no, that was just the update
land
for that.
acquisition, past Massac River,
There's really not much, I mean, we're still waiting for the charter review articles, the
Oh,
budget
I
will
thought you
be.
had them. I know you just got them, but I thought you had the
Well,
charter.
to vote on, I wouldn't recommend we vote on them tonight,
No,
because the
no,
committee
I
hasn't seen
just-
them.
But I
Right.
thought they were in your
You
hands.
finalized them last night, right, Terry?
Well, I think that the topics are finalized. I think that the language is not.
I mean, I received wording, it looked, and, Anthony needs to review it, but it looked like there was an attempt to draft the article wording.
Right.
So those just came in today.
Will we have them for next Thursday, too?
Hopefully, I mean, I have to check with town council, they need to review them.
Right.
We have a meeting Monday to go with the council to review the remainder of the warrant, so I'll know better.
Yeah, so the goal is next week to hopefully wrap up the majority of the articles. And then potentially start to talk about presentation of the memo. I know we used, Brian, we used the one from last year. We can probably tweak those,
Yeah.
because those were pretty good, those were pretty good charts, and just update the data for fiscal '24, instead of recreating the wheel.
Don't have to reinvent, exactly.
Right, and I think also maybe we add something in there for the last year, long-term capital really wasn't a thing, if you will, but I think maybe we need to mention that in there, that
I
the
think it
town's
would be
looking
more
at.
specific, because last year there was a brief discussion in the
Right.
cover note, but be
Yeah.
more specific.
Yeah. So I'll get all that together, and then I can forward everything that we have pending, so that the committee has it for whatever they need for next week for
Nice.
the articles. And that's all I have. And then the minutes.
Yeah, the minutes.
liaison
Always the
reports.
minutes.
Any liaison reports?
Not really.
Okay, and the minutes from the April 11th meeting. Again, Elizabeth does a great job.
She does. She really does.
Motion to approve as written.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
John, make a motion to approve.
Second?
I think Phil second. Phil beat you out. Phil second. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor of approving the minutes from April 11th?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain, I wasn't here.
I wasn't there.
Okay. So it's 7-0-1, right?
You want to abstain.
Oh, okay, so it's 6-0-2, 2 abstentions. Okay. Okay, is there anything else we want to?
Terry's got a hand up.
I just have a couple questions. I'm not gonna be here on the 16th and the 25th of May, and we had talked earlier in the year about doing some work on the report that Brian, and also the report that you presented earlier in the year, on kind of long-term planning. I don't wanna lose track of that, because I know that once this is done, people are kinda gone.
I think I'd like to also bring up formatting of budget data for the next go-round that we've been asking for the last 4 years,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and whether or not we will be accepting data that isn't in that format.
so when do you want to, when are you going to bring that up?
Wednesday or
Bring
Thursday.
it up right now.
I won't be here for the article
Right.
review, but I'm gonna give them
I
as much
think
as
we
they
could do it after
need
town
between
meeting.
now and then.
If people have the appetite to get together, I think just focus right now on trying to get this done, and then if we could do a couple of meetings, maybe over the summer.
Yeah.
I would like to definitely do
Yeah.
some additional meetings, particularly, I would like to talk about the school committee, not the school committee, but the school budget again. Because within 2 years, it's gonna be upwards of $65 to $70 million. And I would like to talk about how to come to grips with that and put a stake in the ground to find out what we're actually getting for $60 to $65 million.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think,
I'd suggest we continue the trend on meeting Thursdays,
yeah,
and if we can meet 2 Thursdays, the following 2 Thursdays after town meeting, and kind of,
My
because the
problem,
summer, once we get into the summer, it's always
I'm
difficult.
gonna be out of the country until the end of June, from the
Okay.
15th of May till the end of
before
June.
Sean.
You're only playing Take It Away,
Just
just
wanna-
come on back.
Well, what do you say, you wanted to leave? Good
I'm not sure if you were.
He's got a life, you
I'm not sure
know.
if you were here when I did the presentation, and I took the actuals for 3 years. I used an average, and I showed how the actual expenses are growing much faster than our revenue lines. And I took it through, my initial purpose was to use the 50-year thing, and then put all those special projects in there and see where they came in. And we're clearly on a collision path here. And I don't know if you saw that, or, so I'd like to know what your opinion is.
I had some thoughts, so, let me review it again with Gary, and
All
I'll
right,
provide
all right.
you
It's
some.
similar to what we do in our projections. when we build the
I would
budget.
like, also like to make a recommendation that, I know we were talking about the impact of all these increased expenses, even, things going up annually on the operating budget. But we had talked about what impact they would have on residential tax levy, commercial tax levy, or whatever. I wouldn't mind seeing some sort of projection on it for each of those different tax levies going out 10 years by adding up all the expenses that'll be put on them on an annual basis, but for the operating budgets going up for inflation or whatever, and then also the cost of many of these special projects. Because I think it's going to be more than $1,000 over whatever that number was going out.
Well, it's an exercise to show that there's capital projects that need to be funded. It's the and how these things can be funded over time to show that, yeah, they are affordable. There's a cost. I mean, you can't get around it. So, we have schools that were built in the 50s. That's never gonna happen again. Projects, even the current high school, it's 25 years old. I mean, you have to start thinking about what's that replacement plan? Like, the town needs to think about it. So eventually, all communities, I think, go through this, where you either spend the money over time or you spend it in chunks. And it's always hard to absorb, and nobody wants to do it. The community needs to decide. We have this discussion around the schools and their budget. It's a great school system, and that helps with property values, and people's property values are high. So when we talk about, well, how do we fund these projects over the long term, you heard me say, well, yeah, you're paying, the residents are paying for it with increased taxes. Their values of their homes are going up too, so when they sell those homes, they're getting a portion of that back, and it can be a significant portion if the town continues to invest in the future.
I hear what you're saying, but I would still like to see what impact it has on an annual basis going forward.
I mean, we're assuming a lot of things, a 2.5% increase over the next 50 years. Well,
But I mean, we can't,
Proposition 2.5, yes, if it stays in place. I mean, the way inflation's going,
It may
the state might say
It
no more
seems-
Proposition 2.5.
Exactly, it may disappear.
Right, so it could be Proposition
That would be
5.5.
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it seems to me, it's like your household budget. It seems to me you can't do everything. And we might have a swell school system or whatever, but you can't, I'm not picking the schools, this happened to be the biggest elephant in the room. You just can't do everything. And I think people will have to look and decide what they want to do and what they don't want to do. And I think the more information you can give them before these things happen on a proactive basis, not reacting, the better off we'll all be.
And to that point, Brian, when Mr. Kiley was here, they were projecting out, and they're gonna be running in the red in the next few years. I mean, this year they had the school choice money that they used.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be available again. So they're gonna be running in the deficit, and to everybody's point, how we pay for that? You know, I go back and forth with Gary about bonds and all that. I know what Gary says, well, Bill, you gotta pay for when they mature. What does the federal government do? Every time something's gonna mature, they issue new bonds. So, I love to read up more on municipal bonds. I really think it's something we should be looking into, rather than just raising people's taxes.
Yeah. The other thing, the good news is, right now, as far as debt, we don't have a lot of debt. I mean, that's the good, so we're starting at
Yeah.
that point. But I gotta tell you, that lady that came in, last year, did a presentation about our debt capacity. There's no way that the number that she gave us is right, based on the analysis that I did, you know.
Well, we have $7.2 billion in assessed value in the town, and usually it's about, I forget what the percentage is, but the last time I calculated, we had about $250 million in capacity to borrow.
But
That's a lot of capacity.
You know,
Yeah,
you know,
But-
sometimes you think having,
don't
So
think we
what?
have
You have the capacity, but do you
sometimes you
wanna?
think having no debt is a good thing, and
it's not.
it isn't. Because
Well, I'm
you
not
need
saying
debt,
that.
because you need that debt to expire so you can take on new
I
capital
understand
projects.
that, I understand that. But
So
I'm just
having a-
saying, when you look at, you know, the needs and what our free cash is every year that we develop, there's no way that we have that kind of debt capacity, when you include the interest on it too. Because it's not just the debt, it's the interest over 30 years.
Now, keep in mind that 250 million that's projected, the majority of that is debt exclusion. So that's outside the debt limit. So, you know, that'd have to go to the voters, that means big projects like schools and treatment plants. So that's not something that we would, it's built into the budget, but it's outside the debt limit. That's not something that, you know, we generate the revenue through the debt, through the outside the debt limit. Then we pay that debt off.
You have to
So-
pay it off.
Yeah, right.
So Terry, you want to say something?
but this is just one woman's opinion. Over the time that I've been on the Finance Committee, we have now moved to a place where we really do think about long-term planning, and that's something that we've wanted to do for a long time. And there is actually a committee that's doing long-term planning. And the plan that was presented at the Select Board meeting it's like an outline. It's not a real plan, it's not hard and fast, it's just what would happen, theoretically what would happen. And there's a lot that's gonna have to happen on the other side of that. There's some conversation about having a budget advisory group at some point. I don't know how that would morph, but that's, I think, what people are bringing up today is a topic that would be addressed by that group. And I know nobody wants taxes to go up. Everybody's worried about their income and what they can afford. And we have a list of capital items that are not optional. We can either plan for them and figure out how to fix them in advance, or we can wait until they break and then come up with the money then. So it's a good thing that we're planning long-term, I think. And I think the points that were brought up today are very valid. One of the reasons I think we need to meet after the town meeting is to start grappling with this and figure out what is the Finance Committee's role in that conversation. How are we gonna move forward to do more long-term planning? Expand on what we've already done.
Yeah.
How would we address this? Can we talk about it in terms of more planning to plan into the summer?
I think we have to look at the report that you sent out, the information that you shared earlier in the session, and absorb that, and maybe start by asking questions. What are the questions that we have? And how would those questions be answered? Because they're legitimate concerns that everybody has. I just wanted to make the point that I don't really think it's gonna be optional to say we're gonna do this and we're not gonna do that.
No, I agree.
Because the things that are on that list, you can't get rid of the DPW, you can't get rid of the schools. I know people think you can minimize the schools, maybe close the school. I don't know how you do that, and I think those are some of the questions that we have to
I
ask.
think you're right, but there are also things, I know I've been pushing for economic development for at least
Yeah,
5 years,
yeah,
which would
exactly.
offset some of
Yeah.
those costs.
Yeah. And that's
But
why I
not-
think
not-
reviewing
sorry, go
reviewing
ahead.
a report is gonna be important, to go back and look at that information. I don't think everybody here even has it, because
I don't even remember what I
you
wrote.
put it out you put it out a couple of years ago, and then Bob had a report that, I don't think you've sent it out, right? Bob, you just have it, you're kind of updating it.
Yeah.
So we probably wanna look at that and figure out what questions we have.
Well, the question I have is, do you want me to make a presentation to the select board on my presentation?
So I did review it at the time, and I had some comments. I talked to Gary, but I can't remember them now. So, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Revisit them.
No, because 2 years ago, I had said that Proposition 2.5 works when inflation is low.
Yeah.
The time period that I looked at the actuals was the worst time for inflation. So it could be a bump, but, inflation is like 3.5%, 4%. So, it wasn't, back then, it was,
It
2%.
it doesn't even really matter, because inflation before that was 2%. So we should be looking at adding that 2% or whatever our best estimate it's gonna be, going out to find out what this is gonna look like on everybody's tax bill. At least, I mean, even if you can't put off doing any of these projects, to let people know that this is, kicking the can down the road for the last 10 years has not been beneficial.
I think the long-term
Right.
capital committee has done a great job with identifying just that, what a project like the schools means to your tax bill, what that, in year, 10 of the borrowing, of a 20-year borrowing, so that's kind of all been calculated, but
But I think, John, you at the last meeting made a good point about the increases over time, like 2.5% were the same, even going forward. Was that your point, where,
The projected.
the projected, right?
Yeah, and we know that's not true.
Yeah, we know that's not true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's those sort of questions, I think, when you pay more attention to these various reports that could be raised and then follow them to a logical conclusion in terms of how they impact tax bills. And we haven't even brought up the whole concept of, I think somebody mentioned upwards of 35% of the people who live in this town are people on fixed income. So how are they gonna, how are we gonna help them meet their tax obligations going forward?
I mean, we have to find a balance between,
Sorry?
we need to find a balance between,
Well, but I
can
think
the
all these
people
things-
afford
sorry.
it, and can the town afford it? Like, what's gonna happen if we don't do it? And,
But I mean, I think all these things, the sooner you get these things out.
Yeah, in the open.
In the open and let people discuss it, the more palatable they become.
Absolutely.
And maybe people will be able to think of things that will offset some of these.
Yep.
Like one of the
Fair.
things that Bill mentioned was transportation for schools and the idea of having a fee. Nobody likes it, but it should be out in the open, and people should have a discussion about it and vote it down or vote it up.
okay,
All right, we ready? Someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Harry made a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Phil second. Sorry.
Bob, I'm getting a complex
Well,
over
I
here.
know, because I saw him first. All in favor, say aye. Thank you, Sean. Any opposed? None.